Welcome, everybody, to the Year of the Movie podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from the year of the movie 2023. I'm Sebastian.
I'm Maggie.
And as always, we have Bryce in our video booth.
And as always, I never check my own camera before we do this.
I like that. Ooh, yep.
Oh.
That's a little sneak peek for our video viewers.
What could it be?
It's just Bryce showing off his body. I like calling it the video booth, even though it's just
the same room that we're in.
same room 5 feet away at a little fold-out table.
Yeah.
I can put a screen in between us. Just add the allure.
Yeah, so, we talk about movies from the year of the movie, 2023. If you want to support us, go to our Patreon. Check that out. All of our content goes up a day early there and exclusive content. And give us ratings.
Good ones.
Good ones, please. On any of those podcast services that you use to listen or watch. Leave comments on YouTube.
Helps us out.
Helps out the algorithms. Helps us know what we should do better. So today we're going to be talking about Haunted Mansion.
Which is completely different from The Haunted Mansion.
Yes, but we're also going to be talking about
The Haunted Mansion. With special guest Bryce, because he has thoughts.
I know many things.
Yeah.
And I have very strong opinions.
That's true. Bryce brings the Disney aspect of the ride.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Why did we start this podcast?
Well, we've never talked about this before.
We haven't. I just thought that maybe we finally should. Episode 12. What episode is this?
It's
13?
the episode where we finally open it up to people.
I hope this is episode 13. That would be fun. Anyways, you answer the question of why did we start this podcast?
We started this podcast because 2023 has had writer strikes and actor strikes, and then just on top of that already kind of a weird year for movies. We've got Cocaine Bear, we've got 65, we've got Tetris and Barbie and that Blackberry movie, maybe, or was that the year before?
That was this year. That was this year.
George Foreman. Just so many wild choices all happening at the same time, and there's hundreds of them, and this podcast will never end, and we didn't realize that when we started it. Yeah.
This is episode 14, I think.
Cool.
So not quite 13. Bottoms was 13. Right? That was the last one we did?
Yeah. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
You always mention the George Foreman movie, and every time it comes to a shock to me. I just always forget it.
Yeah, me too.
It's not one that I feel like, one, you would expect
in
2023, and two, that you heard of.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we really only heard of it because we were looking for 2023 movies.
Yeah, it's, I feel like if Air and maybe other, like, biopic movies hadn't come out this year, then that would have been a bigger one. But also, if they had kept the original title, because the original title was so long.
It was a really long title.
Yeah.
It wasn't just George Foreman. It was like George Foreman and the blah 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 blah.
It was
and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah.
But yeah, today we're talking about Haunted Mansion, the 2023 release one with Rosario Dawson, Owen Wilson, Danny DeVito, Keith Stanfield.
Yeah, the synopsis of the movie is a woman and her son enlist a motley crew of so-called spiritual experts to help rid their home of supernatural squatters.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions when you heard about this movie?
Why? That was my first impression because, I grew up with the Eddie Murphy one. I'm not saying the Eddie Murphy one is a great movie, but grew up with that one. But also, in 2021, they released The Muppets Haunted Mansion, which, did that one just do really well? Had big audience engagement, and then Disney was like, maybe we should make it again.
I don't have much on the Muppet one.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about how that was received, but in general,
I didn't love it personally.
Yeah.
And I love the Muppets.
Yeah.
But that one I was like,
In general, I think that's kind of the response of people is like, this is the third movie in this franchise. And I was like, oh, they made a sequel to the Eddie Murphy one? Because I thought they did, but I just Mandela affected myself.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
What was your first impression?
I was like, yeah, it makes sense. Just because of the live action movies that have been coming out, or live action movies of Disney, and then everything is cyclical, so it makes sense that it's been 20 years. They're going to come up with this movie again. Although that's not quite the timeline. Like, we'll get into that later.
Bryce?
Yeah.
What was your first impression when you heard about this movie?
Let's go. Anytime I can get any story out of the Haunted Mansion, because it just has no story in the ride, here for it. Also, I love seeing all the people complain about, that wasn't my story that I had of the Haunted Mansion. Yeah, because there isn't one. You made that up.
It's just a location.
It's just a location, exactly, with a lot of goofy ghouls.
Does the ride take place in the ride's lore? Does it take place in New Orleans?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's placed in New Orleans Square in Disney.
Yeah.
Well, Disneyland.
The 2003 movie, I think they originally were going to set it in like New York or something like that. And then they changed it to New Orleans to be like within the lore of the ride. Maybe it wasn't New York, but it was somewhere like East Coast.
Yeah.
And I read that and I was like, why?
All right.
So, yeah.
Well,
Bryce, have you seen the Eddie Murphy movie?
Oh yeah.
Impressions on that?
Thought it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. No comments really. Oh, the one thing I do have a comment about that. I think they focused on the wrong things, and I think that's why it went wrong.
the 2003 one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They focused too much on the master of the house, or
Yeah.
the debatable master of the house,
Sure.
Master
Yeah.
Gracie, and it was all about the Gracies.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you have 998 other ghosts to talk about.
Canonically. Yeah.
Canonically, yeah. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why focus on this one dude?
Mhm.
And yeah, this one, I wouldn't say, not to get too far into it, I wouldn't say it hit all of its marks, but it hit more marks than the 2003 one.
Yeah. I could see that. I think there are pros and cons to both of the plots, which we will get into in a little bit. I had also never seen the 2003 movie until we watched it the other night after watching the 2023 one.
Yeah.
We just kind of put them on back to back.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we don't have to watch this all the way through. And then we just did. Which I liked it. I'd always heard like, I think my impression of that movie, like just hearing about it, was like, it's a family movie, or like people feel nostalgic towards it, but it's not a critically well received movie.
No.
Which I think it's pretty accurate still.
Yeah. But first, we'll talk about the 2023 one more in depth, and as always, we're going to talk about the trailer of the film, because these movies came out so recently. There's only so much we can talk about it without giving spoilers. And maybe we talk about the trailer and you're like, wow, I should go check this movie out. It sounds like a lot of fun. I think I would like this movie.
That's a good impression of
our fans,
everyone,
our audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also we can't legally show the trailer.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. It's also interesting to see how movies are marketed and how different it is from the movie itself.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's my turn.
Yes. I'm just going to say that this is the teaser trailer because this one reveals the most about the plot of the movie itself. And
the teaser trailer
teaser trailer does.
Weird.
The ones that came out after that are just like shots of ghosts.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. Well, spooky music starts as a car pulls a U-Haul down a long driveway at night. The camera slides to the side, showing a do not enter sign on a pillar. The screen briefly fades to black before showing the car pulling up to a gate, someone unlocking a large padlock, and a woman's, and Gabby is the character's name, narration saying, "Welcome home." Another brief flash to black, coming back on a full shot of the manor, then shots to the spooky interior of the house. Gabby continues, "I know this place isn't as warm as I had hoped," and we see a boy named Travis exploring parts of the house with a flashlight, seeing lots of cobwebs and a spooky portrait of a bride. The screen goes dark again and takes longer to come back up on Travis's face as he listens to Gabby say, "But I'm going to light a vanilla candle and it's going to be a game changer." And a frightened Travis responds, "Will it though?" There's a quick cut to the ghost bride vibrating in a room. Travis screams and Gabby says, "We're out," grabbing her son and running away from a suit of armor that starts chasing them. The Disney logo comes on screen before cutting back to the mansion exterior while more upbeat violin music plays with the man, Father Kent, standing in front. Kent's voiceover says, "This mansion is unhinged," and we see a ghost carrying a lantern walking at the end of the hall. Gabby holds her son close as Kent says she needs all the help she can get, and there are flashes of the other characters, Harriet and Bruce, and we see Kent talking to a man, Ben, asking him, "You want to be a hero?" The screen goes black again, coming back up on Ben wiping dust from a mirror and revealing the ghost bride behind him. The screen flashes as she raises an axe, going back to back with a faint scream. Then the music cuts out as the image of Ben fades back up on screen, telling Kent, "Pass." Kent says, $2,000, and Ben says, "What's the address?" He's just in this for the money. Full screen graphics saying, "This year," as the music changes again, kind of like old blues, and the words are pushed off to the right as the camera starts to follow Ben walking down the mansion hallway, passing by a portrait of a man. Words come in from the left saying, "Disney invites you." They continue to the right as Ben comes back on screen yelling, "Guys, little help?" And the man in the portrait is larger. More words from the left say, "To come home." They go right, and Ben continues to walk, saying, "I know I just saw them." He stops in front of the portrait, the man now raising an axe. The screen goes back to black, coming back up on Gabby saying, "This house is a way of playing tricks on you." We see Ben point a remote at a TV, then the remote flies out of his hand. Danny DeVito laughs, and another full screen saying, "Because home." Another full screen saying, "Because home," before quick shots of the mansion windows disappearing. Ben running down a hallway, a ghost laughing, and Travis looking mildly spooked. More words on screen is "Where the haunt is." Then shots of a ghost holding its own head, something flying into Danny DeVito's hand, and a storm inside Ben's house. Gabby says, "Oh my God," and Ben asks, "Is anyone else seeing this?" And Travis says, "Yeah, I'm seeing it," as the ceiling of a room begins to stretch up, like in the Disney ride. There's another shot of the ghost bride with her axe walking downstairs, a clock with hands spinning, and a ghost playing a large organ with other ghosts flying out of the pipes. We hear Danny DeVito say, "Be careful," as we see Ben standing in front of several empty graves, then running through the graveyard. The narration continues. Death lurks around every corner. Over quick shots of doors opening up for a woman, Madame Leota, and various cast members facing down supernatural events. The screen goes black again and fades back up on a second door as Harriet says, "Other more powerful entities may come through." And Kent says, "Not on our watch." Ben asks, "Well, what are you going to do?" And Kent holds up an axe, and Ben says, "Seriously?" Kent says, "Yeah." Harriet says, "They're already dead." Kent responds, "They're going to be deader." Then the music continues to build as the movie title comes on screen before appearing soon in theaters.
Yeah. It's, I feel like, not super common for the teaser trailer to reveal the most about the plot.
No.
Everything else was just kind of like cinematic shots. I liked the editing of the teaser trailer just because, I mean, we've done, I guess, 14 of these now. And even just like, there's kind of a formula to them of like, and now the full screen graphic comes up with like a movie tagline or whatever. And I just liked the simple changes of like it's sliding off screen and it goes back and forth between the graphics and Ben and things like slowly changing every time. It seems like a Disney movie.
Yeah.
It seems like that kind of formula. There's some pretty good jokes and then like general acknowledging of haunted house tropes. Like Gabby saying like, "I'm gonna light a vanilla candle and it's gonna be a game changer." And Travis is like,
"Will it though?" That
will
kid
it though?
nailed
that. It's a great line delivery. Which is why they put it in the trailer. There are so many axes in this trailer, and I'm just like, I wonder if they're like, we can't give the ghosts a gun or something. Like, what's the spookiest weapon?
Are there a lot of axes on the ride, Bryce?
Well, it's Constance Hatchaway was the ghost bride. She has a whole thing of she killed all of her husbands with a hatchet.
I know that's part of her character, but then it's also like Owen Wilson holding an axe, and like the dude in the portrait is also holding an axe over a pig instead of like a big carving knife or something like that. It's just an interesting choice to me where they're like, we got a lot of axes, we got to use them. It's
a big house, probably made of wood. You needed a lot of axes to cut that wood.
It's true. I like to imagine though that it's just they had a mishap with their ordering of their prop axes, and they got like 50 instead of 15, right?
And They didn't cancel their subscription to Amazon.
Yeah.
I hate that line.
To
That's
Access
the one
Monthly?
part that I hated about this movie.
We'll talk about that.
We're getting there.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm looking at other notes. The official trailer, again, doesn't reveal much about the plot, mostly just showing the ghosts' special effects. It also highlights, in the official trailer, it highlights from the studio that brought you Pirates of the Caribbean and says, take a ride to the other side. So really trying to, like, say, like, you loved the Pirates franchise that was based off of a Disney ride. You're gonna love this one. So they're pretty specific on, like, who this movie is for.
Yeah.
It's the big old Disney fans.
Except Pirates of the Caribbean
Had a plot.
And was able to hold its own without it being a ride.
Mm-hmm.
For years, I had no idea it was a ride.
For years,
I'm also not a huge Disney parks fan.
Yeah.
But I really was like, this is a cool franchise. I mean, it sort of drops off after the third, but
yeah,
you know,
for a while I didn't realize that the ride came first.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Want to talk about the cast?
Yeah, it's a good cast, obviously, because it's a Disney money, so they can afford to have a good cast.
Mm-hmm.
Ben is Lakeith Stanfield. I love Lakeith Stanfield. Rosario Dawson is Gabby. Owen Wilson is Father Kent. Tiffany Haddish is Harriet. Danny DeVito is Bruce. Jamie Lee Curtis is Madame Leota. Chase Dillon is the kid Travis. And then...
Unfortunately,
Jared Leto is in this movie, and he plays Crump / the Hatbox Ghost.
You can't even tell.
Exactly.
So why is it Jared Leto?
That was one of my issues. Is like I could almost get it at first of like he's got the cheekbones. Like there are those images of like the basically just a skull and like high cheekbones or whatever. So I thought in like various flashback scenes when Crump was still alive that maybe there would be some sort of transformation.
You get one thing where it's like a newspaper or something, or like a picture of him.
Mm-hmm.
And
I don't even remember that.
Oh, it's real brief. It's so brief that I was just like, oh, that is Jared Leto.
It's when Danny DeVito, because his character is a professor, so he has a lot of like information about the local history, and he says he's just giving exposition basically, and then you see Jared Leto's face briefly, and then in like behind the scenes interviews that I saw, they were talking about the various cast members and stuff. He was the only one that wasn't like included in the interview. Like everyone else sat down and talked about stuff, at least from the things that I saw. And then the director was like, he gave so much to this role, and that was all that they
yeah, it's because everyone knows that Jared Leto is crazy.
Yeah.
And you don't want to work with Jared Leto.
Allegedly, please don't sue us. But also, like, method acting is bad, in my opinion. So I don't know if Jared Leto went method for this. If he cut off his own head and carried it around with him. Probably not.
There were also some cameo roles.
Yeah.
Joe Coy was a bartender, Hassan Minaj was a sketch artist, and Dan Levy was a B&B dinner theater host. Dan Levy had Seventh Building.
Yeah.
Like his name was Seventh Building. He was on screen by itself.
He shows up
in this movie less than 30 seconds.
He shows up in a trailer.
Good job, Dan Levy.
Yeah.
I have a theory about that. So the two big names, Winona Ryder.
And then also Winona Ryder was a tour guide for the B&B.
Yeah.
Not credited at all.
Right.
And it's Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
I'm thinking Dan Levy and Winona Ryder, because that mansion that they went into, that was the mansion from Disney World.
Mm.
Oh.
So I'm thinking they're trying to queue up a sequel, and then they would be the stars of that one.
I have tentative info on that.
So Disney World and Disneyland have different haunted mansions?
Yes. The 2003 one kind of mashed both of them together.
Okay.
But this one, they went with purely the Disneyland one for the beginning, and then they hopped over to the Disney World one.
Gotcha.
Mm.
Yeah. That's how I think they're going to try to tie in the Hatbox Ghost.
Let's see.
Both of the movies expand the size of the house, and like watching this movie, I was like, yeah, it's a big house. And then like the end credits or something, it's like the camera is like flying away from it, and it goes down the side of the house, and it just keeps going, and it's massive. and then the 2003 one.
Personally, the 2003 one felt bigger to me.
It felt larger because like
the rooms
are massive, and it stays on it. Like the camera stays on the house more because you're discovering this house alongside this family. Yeah. In the 2023 version, the family has already lived there for a while, so they're not like welcome to the grand tour or whatever. Yeah. They know what's going on with the house and they don't like it, so it doesn't really stick with them that much.
I would say if you don't want spoilers, now is a time when you should stop listening, because we're going to talk about the premise of the movie.
So like we see in the trailer, Gabby and her son Travis just moved to New Orleans. She says at one point that she's a doctor. She lived, I think, maybe in New York or something.
Yeah, they're from New York.
Her mom lives in the area. She wanted to move back. They got this house. She like it goes against some of the initial like haunted house tropes of like, this is a fresh start for our family. We need to be here.
We're gonna make this work.
Or like you have a financial obligation to stay in this house and you can't actually logistically leave it. That doesn't happen within like the first 30 seconds of meeting Gabby, where she's just like, she sees the suit of armor and she's like, oh, we're fully leaving. And then for reasons they have to come back.
Sorry, I don't want to step on the premise part. I like the reason why they came back, because it is a big thing in the ride that, be careful, you might have a ghost go home with you. Like the hitchhiking, that's the whole thing with the hitchhiking.
So like
ghosts.
that helps. I hated it. I thought it was so stupid. The ghost rules in this movie, I hate. I cannot stand.
I'm not a fan of the logic.
This is the difference between a good movie and a fun movie for me.
That's like, fair.
You're pointing out good reasons of why it's not a good movie. Mm-hmm. I like it because it
that's
fun.
Fair. It's called the Haunted Mansion, not the Haunted City.
It's actually just Haunted Mansion.
I'm talking about the 2003 one.
But yeah, like what you were talking about with Pirates, I think they didn't try to build plot points except for Tortuga from the ride. They just used the aesthetic, which I think is good.
It worked out.
And made a good movie. For this one, I think trying to incorporate plot points from the ride into the movie made it not a good movie, but a fun movie, like the Doom buggy, which you'll get into later.
That was like their whole goal, was to make it like it does not reference the 2003 movie at all. It is not based off of like,
they tried to they tried to give Eddie Murphy like a little spot, but he wanted like $500,000 for a day's work, and they were like, "No, Eddie, you're not who you were 20 years ago. I'm sorry."
So the premise of the 2003 one is Eddie Murphy and his wife are real estate agents, and they're on their way out of town for like a family trip, because Eddie Murphy works too hard. And then they get sidetracked and go to this house that like is allegedly up for a listing, but they specifically wanted Eddie Murphy's wife, Sarah, to be the agent for it. They're in the house for like 24 hours, maybe. Yeah. That's the whole course of the movie. And they don't live in the house. In this one, Gabby and Travis live in the house. They find out that like when you leave, the spirits come with you and
make you come back.
They bother you until you come back. So she's like, well, we need help to deal with this. She finds Father Kent to try and do an exorcism on the house. That doesn't work. Father Kent ropes in Ben,
who is a physicist.
He's a former astrophysicist,
but he made a camera that can capture ghosts.
He made a camera that can capture ghosts, or like ghost particles. And he did it because his wife was a ghost tour guide.
She believed in ghosts.
Yes.
He believed in science.
And he was like, I'm going to make a lens that combines our two interests into this. And then she beefed it. She died in a car accident. It comes up later. And then so now Ben is a tour guide, like doing it for her basically,
but not a ghost tour guide, just a tour guide.
Yeah, people keep trying. There's a scene, like his introduction scene, where there's a whole group that's like, he says like, they'll just follow me, they always do, like he's some sort of like ultra tour guide. And then he walks outside and he's leading a group, and they like keep trying to get him to talk about ghosts, and he's like, this is a historic tour, like he refuses to talk about it. And I don't know, they like say some things in that scene where it seems like he's done a lot of paranormal investigating, but then that never comes up again. They're just like dead wife anyway.
There's a lot that they did with his story that I don't love.
It
was sloppy.
So Father Kent finds him. He's like, $2,000, this woman needs help, and Ben is like, great, I'll go help out. He pretends to like look for ghosts. He's not super into it, and then he leaves and a ghost follows him back. That's when the whole like storm happens inside of his apartment, or his house, which like that's way too expensive for him to
New Orleans is expensive.
And then he comes back. They try and fix whatever. They get Harriet, who's a medium, to like, so they can talk to the ghost. And then they meet Danny DeVito, and they're like, yeah, we'll bring him in on this too. And then he was like, I've been dying to get into this house. I'm having a heart operation next week. And they're like, you need to stay home. and then he shows up anyway. But one of my issues with this movie is the premise of getting all of the other ensemble characters to get into the mansion. Because when you cross the threshold, then the ghosts follow you back.
The house threshold.
Not
the land.
No.
Which the ghosts also can go on.
Yeah. Then the ghosts will follow you back. And then, so basically, everyone except for Danny DeVito comes into this plot through supernatural entrapment.
Yeah.
And I don't love that.
They don't leave the house until the very end. Like, the only time you see them out was in that dream sequence.
No,
The ghosts?
Yeah.
No, they leave.
The Keith Stanfield comes the first time, and then he goes home, and then the ghost also came with him.
Except, like, they'll leave once they go in, because the way that I read it, or took it, was they came in, they attached themselves to the person because Jared Leto wanted his 999 spirits to do his weird thing that I have a problem with. And the only way that they could leave was attaching themselves onto someone, is how I read it.
I read it as everyone, like, Jared Leto ghost is the most powerful, and he, like, has authority over all of the other ghosts. Some of them are trying to fight back against him. So the ones that follow people home to get them back to the haunted mansion are working against Jared Leto, because they know that, like, the more people here, the more people that know what's going on with the situation are then forced to help us.
Yeah. It's definitely entrapment, because like they even say, like, Rosario Dawson was like, we tried to go to hotels, we went to a different city, and they just followed us everywhere we went.
She
and
says
they kept telling us to come back. The one ghost, the Keith Stanfield that followed Keith Stanfield, was like, return. Yeah.
When he's like a face that's also a wall of water. And then she also specifically says, like, it doesn't matter how far away you go.
Yeah.
Like, they will follow you, which is one of my issues with the ghost logic in the movie, is that you don't have a radius of, like, diminishing power.
Yeah.
They just stick with you. I kind of like the idea of, like, what you're saying of, like, the ghosts following you home, but I think you need to have structure around that.
I thought they were trying to escape. I forgot that the whole return thing. And the thing with that... the water ghost, the Captain Gore.
Yeah.
That was in the original design of the Haunted Mansion. That was supposed to be the original owner of the Haunted, and you would be, I don't know if he would be leading you through it or what, but his story was going to be he killed his wife and then hung himself. That's why they have the hanging scene in the
2003 one. Or
in the ride. Sorry, yeah, in the ride itself.
Yeah,
Captain Gore was supposed to.
2003 one, they show
it opens with Gracie hanging himself.
Yeah, they changed it to Gracie for the movie.
Okay,
because they wanted to be Gracie centric.
Yeah.
But in the original ride concept, it was Captain Gore's mansion, because it was supposed to tie into Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, interesting.
There was supposed to be a tunnel that linked the two.
Okay.
And the Gracie Mansion was, built by the fortune of a pirate.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah. Interesting.
Anyway, the ghost logic is...
Yeah. Yeah, the rest of the plot is like Jared Leto is a evil spirit who so Gracie, hold on. It's Gracie Manor. Mr. Gracie, his wife died, and which like by the time that Ben was like, my wife also died, I was like, how many wives are gonna die in this movie? 2 but 3 spouses total. But so Mr. Gracie was sad that his wife died. He started doing seances to try and contact her. He kept doing more and more seances with Madame Leota, and that's like the lore explanation for why there's so many ghosts in the house in the first place. And then also because they did so many, they like basically opened the door between worlds so large that Crump came through, and he's a bad guy, and he needs 1,000 souls to complete this ritual so that then he will have control forever? ? It's not gonna like bring him back to life or something, but it's like he will always have ghost authority. But
it was so flimsy.
Yeah.
We watched this 2 days ago. I do not know. Truly, I do not know, because this movie was just like, this is happening.
Yeah.
We're kind of telling you why. It's not a good reason why.
Yeah.
And so my brain just went bloop.
That's one of the times where the plot or the ride affecting the plot does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah. So then
I'm still confused, because like they explained that like the ghosts were sort of working for Jared Leto, but then the ghosts start being nice just kind of like after the humans are like, we're trying to help you, because there's a scene when they go to the other mansion, the captain ghost follows them and tries to go out of the car, and the Keith Stanfield is like, hey Captain, do you mind staying in the car so that we can talk to these people and find the thing to help you to set you free? And then the ghost closes the door.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, but if you guys were able to be nice this whole time, then maybe you just to tell the humans like, we need your help, instead of scaring them.
I get like yeah. Like, my brain broke in like the directions of like, and also you could have done this to fix it.
I had to wrap my head around the 2 factions of ghosts, because they kind of forced that.
There were 2 factions?
So some of them are helping Crump, because there's like evil bride lady who and like that whole like group of people that they're like, oh, now he's raising a ghost army. Like those people are like his initial wave, or like his second and third and fourths in command or whatever.
No,
that's my understanding.
So
like these are the bad guys.
Those are the iconic ones that are in the ride. Those are the people who died there naturally.
Oh, okay.
They're the people who went to the mansion and died there.
Okay.
But
they're still helping him?
They were kind of being forced to, because he had all of his seance ghosts. Those were the generic copy and paste ghosts.
Oh, the ones that are just flying around?
Yeah. Those were his guys.
Okay.
And then the ghosts that were just there by happenstance, because they just died there.
Yeah.
Those are the people who kind of had to get roped into it.
I just don't understand why. Because they're dead, what is he gonna do?
Spooky.
They're
dead, like they say in the movie. They're already dead. You can't do anything.
They're all afraid of him, but it's not specified why, or like what the consequences are if you don't listen to him. Besides, he feeds off of grief, and that's why he's targeting Ben. And then reasons, and then also Owen Wilson unionizes the ghosts.
He does. He gets them.
Yeah.
He's just like,
he reveals that he's not a real priest, and that he he tries to do an exorcism or whatever, and then he's just like, why are you even working for this guy anyway? Yeah. He's not helping you out at all.
He says what we were all thinking.
Yeah.
And then they're like, Oh, yeah.
It's like 2 lines of dialogue, and they're like, we're on this guy's team now.
It was weird. I didn't like how they made them all like zombie brained, of like one-minded of, oh yeah, that makes sense. When Master Gracie is a very free thinking ghost and can make kind of more logical, not the most logical decisions.
He's like in a fugue state of grief where like it seems like he's not fully aware of the reality that he's in, because he's, every time you see him, he like opens up a door and he goes, Elizabeth, like he's constantly looking for his wife, but he still also is cognizant enough to help Ben get through the house.
Right.
Yeah, the logic, the ghost logic.
The mummy gets a pass. Yeah.
I want to talk about Ben and his story.
Sure.
Because the movie opens with Ben in a bar, and he meets his wife. We're seeing them meet for the first time. And like, we don't realize that they're married. We think they're like, they're at a bar. They're cute. That's great.
We see their meet cute or whatever.
So like, the movie establishes that Ben is the main character.
We're following Ben,
but he is not a part of the Haunted Mansion in like any other way of just like, we need your help. Yeah. Right. But then throughout the movie, right, we see him sad, and so it's like, it's clear that like she's not around, but it's not clear if she's dead or they broke up. Yeah. And then they show a flashback of when he is first showing her the lens that he built, and he gets down on his knee to get his bag out to grab it, and she's like, what are you doing?
She thinks he's proposing.
Yeah, and like, her reaction is very much, she would not have said yes.
Well, so she was like, oh my god. To me, her reaction were like, oh my god, it's happening. What are you doing? Like, it's happening now? Like, she was expecting a proposal, and then he pulls out the lens, and then she was like, oh, you made a lens. Like, she was disappointed.
No, the way that I saw it was like, she did not want to be proposed to, and then it was a lens, and she was like, oh, it's a lens. Like, but then they show another flashback later of that same time, where then he does propose to her,
so it's like,
and she's super excited.
To me, that seemed like it was like maybe 5 minutes later, because she's holding the lens and she's looking through it, she's like talking to him, and then he gets down on one knee, and then she's like, oh my god. So I thought like, before that scene happened, or like that specific flashback moment happened, I thought like they broke up because he wasn't willing to like commit to the relationship. And he was like, sorry, I'm just gonna make a lens combining our two special interests, and then that's it. That's whatever base we're at, baby.
And it turns out she's dead.
And then
I just thought it wasn't like, everything in this movie was kind of rushed. Yeah. And like, just been sort of forced.
Yeah. The other thing I was gonna say when you were talking about their like meet cute is it's like New Year's Eve when they meet, and she's trying to get the bartender's attention.
Oh, this scene is just like so Disney. Yeah, it's such a magical Disney world that like, you can just,
it's so live sanitized in this existence. Yeah, so she's like trying to get the bartender's attention. Ben is standing behind her, and she's like, she doesn't catch his eye, so she's like, I guess I can't get a drink. And then Ben goes like, you want mine? And offers her his open, already poured, readily available
when that happened, I was
alcohol.
Just like, no.
Yeah, I was like, no woman would be like, thank you, strange man. Let me take this from you.
I know Lakeith Stanfield is a beautiful man, but like, still, it's just,
I thought they like were almost gonna acknowledge that or something, because she was like, we could share, so like, if you're gonna drug me, you're gonna drug you too.
Yeah. And he was like, okay.
Yeah.
I thought they were friends whenever he came up to her, and they're just awkward friends, and then when they started established they don't know each other, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. Instant chemistry.
It's magical Disney world.
Yeah. Back to the ghost logic, because that's the next part of my notes. So the ghost people follow people home. It doesn't seem to have any limitations on the power, or like there's not a distinction of like, if you just cross like the threshold of the property, then that's fine. Like, they're not going to follow you home, but if you cross over physically into the house, then they will follow you home. In the 2003 one, the costume and character design has characters appear more dead the farther away they are from the house. So there's a little bit more built-in logic to that. Yeah, because Ezra and Emma, the two like servant people, in the mansion, they appear human, like fully solid and everything. And then they're in the like buggy thing to go out. Or
they're more ghostly.
They're more transparent. Yeah. And then the mausoleum where they're trying to get a key from, then those are like the most zombified, decayed people. I also think it's kind of this, back to the 2023 one, kind of a flimsy reason for Crump to... Why is Crump at Gracie Manor? Why does any of this take place at Gracie Manor? Yeah. They go to Crump Manor because they're like, in order for us to stop this ritual, we need something like personal of his. So that's why they go to his old house. During either that tour or it's like the Danny DeVito exposition scene, then they talk about how bad of a guy Crump was when he was alive. His dad sucked. He decided to like get revenge on all of his dad's friends once he died, that like all turned their backs on him. And then he was
basically a little baby.
He was a baby boy.
Killed everyone because he didn't get the attention he wanted.
It's like the slightest offense of like he got revenge on all of the people that turned their backs on him, and then if anyone slightly offended him, then he killed them too, because they're like the tombstones that are from the riot or whatever of like, this was a bad maid. I forget the rhyme, but it's like, she sucks, she died. Like
Crump is someone who has a list of people who have wronged him.
Yeah.
And then it's like someone does one little nice thing and he pulls out the list and he erases it, and then the person like accidentally like pushes him, like they cough or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But then they also say that like finally the servants turned on him and beheaded him.
Yeah.
And then Travis has to crawl underneath the Crump Manor, and like he sees all the tombstones, he finds a top hat, he finds Crump's skull. Like, why is any of this taking place at Gracie Manor? Why is like,
if Crump is haunting should be at where the person died.
If Crump is the bad guy, then he should have been tied to the Gracie Manor. Like, why are we going to a completely separate house? I know it's to reference that other...
Well, is it because Gracie was doing the...
Yeah.
Like, that's the
reason.
The lore reason
pulled him out.
Is that, like, it's just localized evil, and that's, like, he was doing so many seances that they're like, well, he's only an hour away or something like that. Like, he's close enough to get pulled through the seance vortex or whatever.
It's flimsy for sure, because Crump killed all the people at his mansion.
Yeah,
so.
I know that, like, none of this is based in reality, as far as we can tell. We don't know how ghosts operate in our real world, but, like, this feels like... That was still my thought process watching it, was like, this feels unrealistic. Like, if you're gonna have a malevolent spirit who has unfinished business, why are they going to their neighbor's place? And why isn't it their own house and like bothering Winona Ryder?
Yeah.
For a movie called The Haunted Mansion, a lot of it takes place
outside of the mansion.
Yeah, and that was a big problem I had with the movie. Which is like, that's why I was like, it's called Haunted Mansion, not Haunted City.
Yeah. Are we good on Ghost Logic?
Yeah, I think we're good on Ghost Logic. Let's talk about everyone's favorite part of everyone's greatest movies.
The ad placements.
Yeah. This, to me...
Egregious.
Worse than Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Worse than Sonic.
Ooh, I don't know about worse than Sonic, because Sonic was basically an Olive Garden commercial.
Sonic is the chaotic good version of this.
That's true.
Also, Sonic stuck with one.
Yeah.
And I feel I'm more okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, this one had everything.
So some of them made sense where like it would be conversational, where Gabby is talking to Ben, I think, and she's telling him about how they wanted to move back home, and she's like, and then I found this house on Zillow. Like, that made sense to me.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't have to say Zillow, but sure, that's conversational enough. The worst one is when Ben finally breaks down in front of everyone. He's fully crying. He's telling them about his dead wife. and like saying how much he misses her and how she like lit up every room and blah blah blah. And then he was saying that she left their house to go get tater tots because she loved tater tots, and then on the way, like, he's still sobbing and he's like, and then she stopped for ice cream at Baskin Robbins, and it's like, are you kidding me?
And then died in a car crash.
And then died immediately.
I didn't even know she was sick.
I still think the worst one for me was when they're in the seance room and she says, oh, what is it? Now, do we have a candle to begin? And Rosario Dawson's like, oh, here,
I have this Yankee candle.
Is this a Yankee candle? Yeah, sorry, I just haven't canceled my Amazon subscription. Whatever. Here's a note and pencil that I bought at the local Staples. CVS.
Yeah.
3 in a row.
Yeah.
3 in a row.
I get that.
I was wrong. This movie does pass the Bechdel test because they talk about Yankee Candle on Amazon.
Yeah, so that one's bad. The Baskin Robbins one is bad.
Yeah.
Sure. All bad. But they are in scenes that theoretically are moving the story along, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. My least favorite one is when they're coming back from Crump Manor and they have Burger King for some reason, and the scene is literally all the scene is literally just Owen Wilson going, here, I think these are the tater tots, and then Lakeith Stanfield goes, no, these are my jalapeno poppers. And that is the scene.
He just like
that is the
fully holds up the crisp
Burger King, so
Burger
you
King
see
bag
in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Nothing. It doesn't relate to the movie. It feels like they shot this scene so that they could also put it in a Burger King commercial.
The flimsiest like reason for it to be there is they are trying to tell Ben that like he's not going to be able to contact his wife because she's at peace, and like that's a good thing that she's not there. But sometimes like the spirits of departed loved ones will send us a little message. Like Harriet says, my dad died. He was really into model trains. Every once in a while when I'm feeling really sad, I hear a train whistle and I know he's saying hi. And then Owen Wilson tries to be like, look, it's your wife reaching out to you because Burger King gave you tater tots. And he's like, these are jalapeno poppers. And then they go back to the manor and that's the entire scene.
Yeah.
It's bad when a movie when 3 different people can have their least favorite advertisement in a movie.
And we didn't even cover all of them.
There's so many more.
Yeah.
The whole opening was a U-Haul commercial.
Yeah.
I mean,
which like sometimes I don't mind.
The U-Haul one makes sense.
I don't mind when there's like a real brand like in the background or whatever, because that's just like when you have to
me it sticks out more if you get a moving truck and it's just like
sons and boxes.
We move, right?
Yeah, I didn't have too much a problem because it's like U-Haul trucks are advertisements for U-Haul.
Yes.
Right.
And it is what it is. It's also an advertisement for New Orleans because they had that mini documentary at the beginning, which I thought was going to be a completely different I thought they were doing those little animated, you know how they have those little animated shorts before some of the Pixar movies or whatnot. I thought they were going to try to do that for the live action things, but like documentary style.
But no, they're just setting up that they're hitting you over the head with the fact that this is in New Orleans, baby.
New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Advertisements. I get that, they need to pay for the movie, but it's
Disney.
It's Disney.
Yeah.
They didn't want to get one more to have Eddie Murphy on there.
Yeah. I mean, if they had one more advertisement, Eddie Murphy could have made it.
Yeah. I was also thinking like, wow, Baskin Robbins must really be shelling out to Disney to have that little mention during your breakdown of your wife's tragic early passing, and then also having Ant-Man work there.
Yeah. Are there Baskin Robbins at Disney?
There should be now. I don't know.
I just feel like I don't see Baskin Robbins too often anymore.
Yeah.
There might be one in downtown Disney.
Yeah.
Because I didn't explore that because I don't care about shopping. But yeah, no, the only ice cream brand that I can remember is the Dole Whips.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
That's fine.
An actual ad for this movie. There was a lot of promotion in various places for this, but Zillow had a fake mansion listing as part of the film promo, which I do like the idea of. I wish that like it made a little more sense just because the first movie has so much to do with real estate.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought he was going to show up because they kept talking about it. I was like, he's got to show up.
Yeah.
I think they really wrote it in that he was going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the scene would have been like, oh, I'm not doing this again. I know Haunted Mansion when I see it. And then he walks away.
or he's just going to be like, I'm going to need a bigger commission or something like, yeah.
Just stay away from my wife.
The ending?
The ending. It is a perfect, everything's wrapped in a bow Disney ending.
There are no loose ends. So it's unclear. So the 2003 movie, it's like maybe 24 hours maximum that they spend in this house. This movie, it's very unclear the entire time how much time has passed and like how long Gabby and Travis have been living there, how long everyone else has been there. The final part, or like the final scene, is them, it's Halloween and they're doing like a reunion party, basically, like the gang's getting back together just to hang out and eat chili, because Danny DeVito pokes his head out the door and he's like,
it's the chili night.
The chili's getting cold. And then like Ben donates his wife's clothes, which I was like, you did not have to specify that like this man was holding on to too much everything. Yeah. I feel like that wasn't really stressed at all, but he donates his wife's clothes to Kent, who isn't a priest but is like, I'm gonna start volunteering.
Well, he works at a costume store or something, right?
Sure.
I'm pretty sure that was established. I do think he said he just has this costume and he puts it on sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think because he works at like a costume store. I'm almost positive I caught that.
Yeah, sure, why not? And then so also Gabby's husband died. We forgot to say this earlier.
Yeah, Gabby's husband and Travis's dad is dead.
Travis's dad is dead.
And so Travis is grieving too, so there's a part where Jared Leto tries to take Travis instead of Ben.
Yeah. But it's not clarified that Travis's dad is dead until like the twist at the end to say that Travis is in danger, because there are parts where he's just like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to my dad, or like I just want to talk to my dad right now, or something like that. Like he says that to Ben. And he's like, yeah, okay, buddy, like see you later. And then they say that Travis's dad died a year ago, so Ben shows up at Gabby's house and he's like, did you get the job? And she's like, I'm the new doctor.
Yep.
And then he brings her flowers. She's dressed very fancy.
So like, also that's something that we haven't said. Travis and Gabby, for whatever reason, throughout this entire movie, are dressed like they are from a different millennia.
Yeah.
And like Travis makes one little comment about it where he's just like, I don't know why I'm bullied. I always dress my best. But when he says it, he's wearing like a plaid shirt, jeans, and a bolo tie.
Yeah.
And he looks like a little cowboy. But then earlier on, like when we first see him in the scene, he looks like a 1940s private school, English schoolboy.
He is truly a little lad. Like he's got like the suit and like the little short
socks that go up high. And the little docker. Yeah. Like.
Yeah.
And then at the end, she is dressed again in a like old fancy dress.
I thought they were going like on a date or something like that, but then she's just like, come on in, this is my chili dress.
They were definitely alluding that Ben and Gabby were going to have some
they were like, will they, won't they? They will, we know they will. But
it's a Disney movie.
Yeah. So Travis has no friends, and then he also lives in a haunted house, so like people make fun of him for it. Which I never understand that logic in movies of like, why would you not be afraid of that kid? Or like, why wouldn't you want to be like, hey man, is your house haunted? That's sick. Like, so she opens the door, talking to Ben, and then Travis is like there, and she's like, tell him your news, and he's like, I was voted vice president of my class. Like, everyone likes him now. Yeah, like they like him second best.
This movie ended like. In like the level it ended was Disney Channel original movie ending, not blockbuster feature film. 2 hours and 4 minutes type of ending. Like it was just like everyone's happy now. It's the equivalent of when movies would end on a freeze frame and then give a little description of what those characters went on to do, but just telling us what happened.
Yeah, it's all of them just like talking to each other, and then the last bit is them all at the dining room table. Ben is at the head of the table, like, this is not your house, but
like, he's the main character, and we know that.
And then they're just watching like ghosts do the can, and I guess eating their chili. I would love to know more about Danny DeVito's chili. It's not a euphemism, it's just true.
So many questions left unanswered.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's some good stuff.
There is good stuff. There are things in this movie that made me laugh. Like, I laughed out loud.
Yeah.
A lot of it was like one-liners or like silly little goofy physical comedy things.
Yeah. I think there are really good elements to this movie, and then the movie just like the plot is trying so hard to barrel through this plot that it just absolutely steamrolls all of the funny bits and like does not let them just breathe, and like doesn't let you acknowledge that it's funny for a second. Like the bit in the trailer of him, like Owen Wilson being like, they're gonna be deader, like that, like that character or that type of humor, they just kind of steamroll over that. Travis has the best line deliveries in all of this.
Travis is great in
Yeah.
this movie. He I've seen that actor in 2 other things. He is in that Netflix movie The Harder They Fall. He plays a young God, what's his name? He plays Kang. Jonathan Majors.
Oh.
He plays a young Jonathan Majors, and I can see that. And then he's in the That Damn Michael Shea sketch comedy show, and he plays a young Michael Shea, and he does good well in that.
I think it's impressive. I normally don't really pay attention to child actors.
Yeah.
So I think it's impressive that 1, I liked him. 2, he's able to hold his own in these scenes with all these like big comedic actors, which like is very impressive of him. I also think like it kind of shows that the script is a little bit weak if like your strongest character is this kid, even though everyone seems to be like trying their best to really commit to the bit.
Like Lakeith Stanfield does a good job because he's a good actor.
People are good in their roles,
but he's giving this emotional delivery and talking about Baskin Robbins.
Exactly.
So it's like
there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Travis is great. Costuming is slightly off. I feel like they were trying to go for like timeless for everyone. But it doesn't quite work.
There is one shot that I can picture in my head specifically where it's Rosario Dawson and she's in one of her old dresses, and then Lakeith Stanfield is in his like New Orleans style, but like he looks like Nathan Drake. Like the way he's dressed is like Nathan Drake, and Nathan Drake has like the gun holsters that go over, but instead of that he has his cameras like strapped over his arms, but he looks like Nathan Drake just with cameras instead of guns, and I was just like, come on, Disney. Like this is not.
It's very vibes dependent. And then for no reason, Danny DeVito is dressed in a transparent raincoat and hat.
Yeah, they go to a hibachi grill, and Danny DeVito is wearing a translucent like Fisher hat kind of. Bucket hat, and then a translucent jacket, and it's like something you would see in Blade Runner, or Altered Carbon, or some sort of thing like that. And it's just
he's just a goofy guy.
I imagine that was just Danny DeVito's, and he's like, I'm wearing this. Like
he just rolled up to set that day, and they were like, oh, you've already been to hair and makeup. Great.
Like, no, and they're like, all right, let's go, Danny.
Very detailed set design, and the sets were massive, and it seems like they tried to be as true to the ride as possible, even with like the framing of the like opening shot of like going through the gates, and they wanted to keep the house at that same angle, which I don't think the 2003 one did. They wanted to keep it like, if you're a fan of the ride, you know this house from this shot, and then just like so many details in the library and the dining room are like the biggest. I think you spend the most time there, the library especially. And then I'm trying to think, they had the movie team like come in, go through the ride, but then also just like stay after hours and have them go through everything like fully with the lights on to see all the different elements of stuff that they could put in there. And they were all about it. I like that it doesn't rely on religion to get rid of the ghosts. Owen Wilson is just like, yeah, I'm not a real priest. And then they don't really talk about, like, you know, the right method of exorcism or like the specific denomination or anything you should exorcise ghosts through, which the 2003 one has a canonical heaven and hell.
It has a canonical heaven and hell, but I don't think it relies on religion. It's just like, oh, by the way,
this ghost went to hell
and these ones went to heaven.
Yeah.
And that, you don't...
That's the ending of the movie.
You don't get that batch anymore.
Not unless you go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Ooh. You go to hell?
Canonically go to hell.
Oh, good.
That's fun.
Yep, and they actually make the hell scene very hot. But so hot that the Alice in Wonderland ride that's built above it is also very hot in just one small random room. It's just like, why is it so hot in here? Because you're above hell.
Good.
Fun fact.
Yeah.
I feel like the Imagineers didn't really think that one through.
Nope.
Cast seemed to have a great time. Everything that I've seen, like, I know it's like Disney and it's a big studio and you gotta like promote the hell out of it and everything,
Yeah,
but
like, when you're making this movie, this is a movie, this is a paycheck movie, this is a I can do an indie film now movie, because it's Disney, but also all of these actors in this film have proven that they're going to get audiences. So I'm sure when they're just on set, they're just having a good time because they're like, oh, I gotta go film this Baskin Robbins commercial real quick. It's part of the movie. Yeah. Let's joke around and have a good time.
Yeah, and everyone seems to like there's a behind the scenes like clip of all of them talking about how much fun they had together and whatever, and Owen Wilson is just like, we bonded. Like,
these guys are really my family now.
Wow. Yep. So we've talked about the original a lot. It came out
20 years before this.
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of a slightly different structure if we're talking about both movies in this episode. Yeah. So just a little bit more about the 2003 one. It came out November 2003. It stars Eddie Murphy. It was not a critical success at the time, but it's now considered a cult classic. The original intended audience grew up with it, and they continue to show it to their kids, so it's kind of like aged with them. And I feel like it held up pretty well.
I think it does.
There were some words for Romani people you should not use anymore. There was a Roger Ebert review that gave it 2.5 stars. He said, the surprising thing about the Haunted Mansion isn't that it's based on a Disney theme park ride, but that it has ambition. It wanted to be more than a movie version of the ride. I expected an inane series of nonstop action sequences, but what I got was a fairly intriguing story about an actual plot that is actually resolved. That doesn't make the movie good enough to recommend, but it makes it better than the ad suggests. Which I thought was interesting.
So the way I feel about these movies is that the 2003 one has charm,
yes,
and this new one doesn't.
Yes,
this new one is just a studio soulless movie that is just.
I feel like the initial premise to get an ensemble cast into a haunted house is like exorcise the demons. Cool, that's stronger than you have a house listing because you might be the re-embodied spirit of the owner's dead wife who he's been searching for like 200-ish years. Yeah. And then it turns out the butler did it, and then he went to hell.
And that's the kind of charm that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, might just be talking out of my ass, but for like a really solid, good Haunted Mansion movie, it needs to be kind of like, what's it called? Get Out. Because that balanced comedy, like good comedy and really good horror together.
I could see more of a Get Out vibe.
Which is what informed the theme of the Haunted Mansion. The ride, at least. Yeah. Because this was one of the last rides Walt got to work on before he died. And two guys took over. One guy wanted it to be traditional, like really scary Haunted Mansion. The other guy wanted it to be more lighthearted and jokey, which is why you get the the final scene where they're all in the graveyard and it's all goofing around. Grim grinning ghosts come out to socialize. But in the beginning, you kind of get more of the actual scares and the tension. Sure. So I think a good Haunted Mansion movie can be done. It just has to be done by
the Muppets.
The Muppets, exactly.
I felt like the 2003 one had a good balance of like some legitimate scares or scare attempts at least, and then they have the full like singing quartet of busts and whatever. Like I
love the singing.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy's face decaying in front of him was like, oh, I didn't expect this to happen like right now.
Yeah. The zombies in the mausoleum were kind of...
They look really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like when she has to go underwater.
Yeah.
And they start grabbing her from...
Yeah.
There were like scary things. I think this new one takes it up a little bit, but you can also explain that with this new one is PG-13 and the original is PG. And so like the original is still like it is a scary movie for kids.
Yeah.
This one was a little bit more for the family. So like
I think the dial, they went too far with the comedy on the first one. This one they swung a little too hard and tried to be serious.
Yeah.
It tries to be serious. I didn't think it was scary at all. I didn't think that there was anything that was like like if I watched this as a 12-year-old like I don't.
Yeah.
Meh.
I did get really excited when they showed Constance Hatchaway's face going. Brrr.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
Then I was like, oh, maybe they're actually gonna try to do it. No.
I also thought like the difference between the original and this one is like the original kind of escalates slowly. Like you figure out, or like the family figures out that something is wrong with the house. This one is just like immediately. Travis is haunted. So it tries to, I feel like, really go to an 11 right away, and I don't think it gets there at all. And then it has to rely on, again, that line read of him going, will it though? That like for that whole thing to pay off.
I like the idea. I just don't think they did it right, like you were saying. Yeah. Like at first I was like, oh yeah, we're right in the thick of it. Cool. I skip all the lead up, go for the ghosts, and then it's just like
yeah, it's like it's called Haunted Mansion. We know what's gonna happen to it, but even then I don't feel like they introduce the elements in the right way. And also, again, the ghost logic to me is flawed. So that's like harder to build a story off of.
And I know like the original has fewer characters, but they do a better job at establishing who these characters are. Yeah. Like you spend a decent amount of time with Eddie Murphy and his family before you even get to the Haunted Mansion to be like, these are who these characters are. Like you get Eddie Murphy as the dad who is just trying to work so that his family can have
he focuses
that he didn't have as a kid. The mom also works, but is like, we need to figure out this family balance better. The son is kind of scared of things. There's a scene where there's a spider in the son's room, and Eddie Murphy's like, you just gotta whack the spider with the magazine. You just gotta whack it. And the kid is like, that's a big spider. I'm not going near that. And then the daughter is the older sibling, and she comes in and just whacks it, and she's just like, get over it. Like she's kind of like the tough older sibling.
Yeah, I agree. This movie did hurt for it. Its large cast hurt itself. Yeah, because it was like too many. You don't need a tactical team, the specialist, the psychic. You don't need
you don't need Ocean's 11 your way through the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. Well, because like especially like with the trailer when like it's revealed that Rosario Dawson and this kid are the people living in the house. I'm like, okay, yeah, they're the characters. Yeah, they're the main characters. We're following them, and the other ones are like the side characters who are there.
I thought it was gonna follow Travis.
Yeah, like Travis and like the kid, like you would follow him, and then like these other characters are like the people trying to help, but we wouldn't really get much more exposition on their background. Yeah, but there was focus on them, and they gave too much exposition, but not enough for it to be like, oh, these are who the people are. Just enough for it to be like, but why? Yeah. So
I think they should have cut. As much as I love him, Danny DeVito and
he didn't need to be there.
Tiffany Haddish. I think those two.
I like the idea of Tiffany Haddish, but
it wasn't executed well.
It wasn't executed well when you also already have Madame Leota built into the plot.
I feel like Tiffany Haddish's character stayed too long. I think something should have happened to up the stakes. Same thing with Danny DeVito's, honestly. Like,
I kind of feel like Owen Wilson doesn't need to be in this movie.
Really?
All right, so everyone gets rid of one.
So I like Owen Wilson. I don't think he's that important. Like Tiffany Haddish's character would have had more time to be fleshed out, and like the character there makes sense to me that it is someone who is connected. And if we're sticking with this Ben and his dead wife, then you get like that story still where she's like, I can't talk to her, and then like she is the one who actually has the power to help stop. Ben is sort of like the bait basically for Jared Leto. I feel like she could have been the one who initially went to the house, but then was like, because like there's a whole plot thing where she's like second guessing herself. She doesn't think she's a good psychic.
They imply that she is a cheap psychic and therefore a bad one.
And she even says at some point that she's not powerful enough to do something. And then Jamie Lee Curtis is like, you can do this. So I'm just like, she should have gone first. She gets trapped, and then she's just like really doubting herself because she can't help this family. She finds Ben, and then
you have the mystical and the science uniting again.
Yeah.
I feel like the plot explains that Owen Wilson doesn't need to be there, where like everyone else is there.
He is there because he unionizes the ghosts.
That's his
which
plot
is not
reason.
Something he has to do.
But like the Harriet is a medium. She's there, like she has a function there. Ben has his ghost camera, so like, and he doubts stuff, so like he has a function and he's also important to the plot. Danny DeVito,
he knows the history.
Like he does help when they're like trying to figure out who exactly Crump is, what's going on and everything. And then he has his heart condition, so he almost dies at one point, and so like he provides some sort of stakes to his involvement too. Owen Wilson isn't a real priest, so he doesn't need to be there.
He was there because she saw him in a priest outfit. I think Owen Wilson's character is the white man that Disney thought test audiences would need to enjoy the movie. To
balance it out. You can't just have Danny DeVito be your white representation.
Because he's too old.
Because he's goofy.
He's the goofy old man character. He's not like... And Owen Wilson, I'm not saying he's young. He's also not old. But he, is more... He's a recognizable young face.
He looks great.
And so I think that's why he is.
That's fair.
I don't know if you have this in your production facts, but I saw a thing... or maybe you even said it. Maybe you even said it to me. But the director of Haunted Mansion blames the movie coming out when Barbie and Oppenheimer came out.
I have
it not doing well.
Stuff
and
about
I'm just
that.
like, oh man. You did not watch this movie, did you?
We'll get there in a second. I just wanted to say a couple other things about the original versus this one. I feel like the special effects hold up in the original pretty well. They're all practical.
They're
basically
practical. Practical always holds, like not always, but like when it is a funded movie, it holds up in a way that CGI just, because even CGI 5 years ago can be like, oh wow, but CGI even, now, the Flash. I mean, like
even the digital stuff, like is specifically in like the Eddie Murphy flying around and like I watched a thing about how much of that was digital versus how much of that was practical effects. I feel like that holds up pretty well. Like you watch it and you're like, early 2000s special effects, but it works. And then I liked that the trailer narration for the 2003 one frames the setup like a real estate listing, where they're like, it's got a spacious ballroom, it's got a grand staircase, it's got some dead people in the backyard, and a deep dark secret.
Eddie Murphy is obviously great. He's Eddie Murphy. He has some great line deliveries in this when he's talking about the cemetery in the backyard. The way he says it just gets like he's like, There's dead people in the backyard. He doesn't say backyard. He says backyard.
He goes,
like it's two separate words.
Look, honey, they have dead people in the backyard.
Like, I don't know why that gets me, but it gets me. There's a part where, like, at the beginning, we're establishing like he cares about, you know, he works too much.
Mm-hmm.
He's getting this couple to sign a lease or a sale agreement.
Yeah.
But they're not signing it. They want to celebrate because they're buying a house.
Yeah.
And like he's just trying to get them to sign it, and they're like, "Oh, you gotta get a drink. We gotta celebrate."
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, "Just sign it!" Like he just yells at them, and then he smiles. It's just like classic Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
Last thing before production facts is both moms in the movies are central to the story, but also shoved aside by the plot.
Yeah.
Which like, wow, what a hot take. But in the 2003 one, Sarah is suspected, or like they think that Sarah is the reincarnation of Elizabeth. So she like the Mr. Gracie like talks to her, like tells her all about his like family history and stuff, not telling her that he's a ghost. So he's like, my great grandfather was in this relationship, blah blah blah. Like he's trying to marry her. She's very central to all the events that are going on. 85% of the movie is following Eddie Murphy through the house. Yeah. Which like I still like the character development of the stuff that you do see, but she's the reason they're at the house and we hardly see her. Mm-hmm. This movie, same thing. Ben is the main character. Why isn't it Gabby? Why aren't we finding out about this mom who's in this weird situation and also experiencing grief? They say that Ben and Travis are the ones that are grieving. Her husband died.
Yeah.
And they never talk about like, how are you? Like, she's never considered like a potential victim.
They could like, she's a doctor. She's smart.
Yeah.
She has this really cool son. She, you know, we get one little scene where she's like, I'm obviously not going to stay here. I'm protecting my kid.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we could have had a cool movie where it's this badass mom protecting her kid from ghosts.
Yeah.
But instead it's the photographer, the physicist photographer.
Yeah. Who's like, he's clearly like not as far or not as advanced in his grieving process as she is. Do you want to start a relationship with that guy? I know he's good with your kid, but like that's gotta suck.
Yeah. Oh, one thing like to show that Ben is good with Travis, like they talk about action figures, and Ben brings up this action figure called what, Hero Man or
Action Man?
Action Man.
Yeah.
And it's just an action figure that has a shoe, and he hits people with his shoe.
It's a generic action figure.
Yeah, and he's just like, oh, I mean, I was poor growing up. Like, it's just like a throwaway line, and then later at the like we get to see Action Man for a second.
Yeah.
Like, that is a funny thing.
Yeah.
That is a very funny concept that they just brush over and steamroll over because there's just so much else that they're like, we have to do this and this and this and this and this, and it's like, but could we maybe have a second to breathe with Action Man, because that is funny.
I forget his tagline that Action Man has, or his catchphrase, but it's like, it's just like try me or something like that. But when he's playing with Travis, then he's like giving the full emotion to the line, so he's just like, try me, like holding the action figure, and Travis like, yay.
Yeah.
Anything else about either of these movies before production facts for the 2023 one?
Do you want Easter eggs or
Easter eggs?
Easter eggs? Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's the Doom buggy whenever chair. Whenever Tiffany gets yeeted out of the mansion.
Yeah.
The Doom buggy was nice to see. The Donald Duck chair was cool to see. That was the one that Ben's the main character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. For some reason, I keep wanting to call Danny DeVito character's name Ben. Ben sits in the Donald Duck chair, which is a Rolly Crump, I believe, design that made it into the Haunted Mansion. Mm-hmm. There's I'm blanking on all of it.
Do you have your camera pointed at you?
Oh. Now you can watch me try to remember all the Easter eggs I was trying to pull up.
I know there are hidden Mickeys in the first one. I didn't see if there were hidden ones in the other one, but I know it's a thing people care about.
Yeah, I never understood that.
Yeah.
There's the Captain Gore thing that I already talked about.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember one, I'll just shout it out.
Yeah.
Okay. Production facts.
This movie was released July 28th, 2023, and then it came onto Disney Plus October 4th.
A terrible time to release a
horrible
Halloween
release
movie
date.
in theaters. I know that they did that just because it would be on streaming for Halloween.
Yeah.
And I think Disney knew, they're like, this movie is not going to do well in theaters. Let's just make it so
Well,
that
they didn't know that.
they didn't know.
No.
Oh, they thought.
They thought it was going to do well. The release date for this movie was moved around a couple of times. I don't fully know why, but at one point it was March 10th, and another point it was August 11th.
Okay.
I feel like August would have been better.
August would have been more acceptable in my
But
mind.
I think that's also why in the trailers it all says this year and like releasing soon. They don't have a specific date like the other ones do. It is a 2-hour and 3-minute runtime with a PG-13 rating. On other ratings, 37% for Rotten Tomatoes with an 84% audience score. What a difference.
Disney adults.
Yeah. 47 out of 100 on Metacritic. It's got a B+ on CinemaScore and an 80% on PostTrack. CinemaScore and PostTrack both rate from audience reviews and not critic reviews.
Okay.
So the people like it. The positive audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes seem to be from fans of the ride.
Yeah.
So there was one that I liked that was just goofy. It gave the movie 3.5 stars. It says, "This is not a good movie, but more an enjoyable Disney ride. I can't help it. I had a good time." I don't know which one you're rating, buddy, if you're rating the movie or the ride, but
That's fair.
yeah. And then the critic consensus on Rotten Tomatoes is Haunted Mansion's talented cast makes the movie a pleasant enough destination, although it's neither scary nor funny enough to wholeheartedly recommend. I think that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a boring movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Yeah. But was it commercially successful?
Was it successful?
My God, not even a little bit.
What? Shocking.
So it had a budget of $150 to $157.8 million. I don't know. So like $150-ish million. I don't know where that 7.8 comes from, but that was the range that I saw. The box office numbers as of October 15th, it earned $116.5 million. 67.5 million of that is from US and Canada, 49 million from other territories. It was released alongside Talk to Me, and it was projected to earn anywhere between $20 to $30 million in the opening weekend. It earned that 20 to 30 range depends on like the predictions. So some of them said like 20 to 25, and some of them said 25 to 30 million. Okay. So I just put both. So it earned 24.1 million in the opening weekend, which like is in that range. It finished in third behind Barbie and Oppenheimer. And then it didn't beat the 2003 film's opening weekend of $24.3 million, and that's not adjusted for inflation.
Wow.
And then the original budget is $90 million with box office of $182.3 million.
Dang, that original one did
pretty well. I don't know like the time frame of that 182.3 million. I don't know like how long did it take them to earn that, because it's been 20 years. How long?
Sure, but it's still
90 versus 182. Yeah,
they doubled.
Yeah. And then
I guess 100% lower.
When this movie was released, it dropped 62% in the second weekend to earn
devastating
$9.2 million.
That's devastating.
Yeah, they earned $10 million in their opening like night, and then the second weekend they earned less than that.
And I know he blamed Barbie and Oppenheimer.
Yeah,
it's not why.
Yeah. So according to like, we talked about this in the Dungeons and Dragons episode of like the amount of money a movie needs to make in order for it to be considered commercially successful, just because of like marketing and post-production costs and other things like that. So this movie, according to Screen Rant, needed to make $350 million to quote break even. It didn't even make back its initial budget, so it's nowhere close to that. This was in development hell.
I know it was, and like we could have had an actually great Haunted Mansion movie. Bryce, are you aware?
I knew Guillermo del Toro
Yes.
was originally tied to it.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about
So,
now.
here's the timeline. 2010.
7 years after the first.
7 years after the first one. There were plans for an adaptation reboot with Guillermo del Toro set to write and produce, and he was going to set the plot in a heightened reality instead of a real world setting. So I don't know if that would be like the ghost world of the Haunted Mansion or whatever. And this is also, he said that the Hatbox Ghost would be a main character. Like, he decided that would happen. So I think that's the only holdover from the original idea. 2012, Guillermo del Toro submitted his final draft of the script, and he was shooting for a PG-13 rating. 2013, del Toro is no longer the project director, but he's still attached as a co-writer and executive producer. 2015, Ryan Gosling is in early negotiations to star. And then August 2020, skip forward 5 years, Disney officially announces Haunted Mansion project with Katie Dippold, who signed on to write the new screenplay. Her credits include Parks and Rec and writing the 2016 Ghostbusters. They wanted someone to write a new screenplay because they thought Del Toro's script was too scary for families. So I don't know what rating he would have actually gotten. Yeah. Yeah. And then April 2021, Justin Simeon, the director, negotiations began to direct. His credits include Dear White People and Bad Hair. So he was officially confirmed as the director in July, or around July. And then July to October 2021, principal casting confirmation started coming out. October 2021 to February 2022, they had principal photography for the movie. And then July 15th, 2023, the film premiered in Disneyland in Anaheim and then officially released to the public on July 28th. Due to the SAG-AFTRA strikes, the film stars couldn't attend and promote the premiere, so Disney characters were on the red carpet instead, including Mickey, Minnie, Maleficent, Cruella de Vil, and the Evil Queen. Which is just very funny to me.
That's sad.
Of like, you can't have anyone there. So you're like, here are our other beloved characters.
Have you seen videos from it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's so weird. It's like the air of a big red carpet reveal. But
then it's Mickey.
It's like it felt cheap.
Yeah.
Because like nothing mattered.
Yeah.
When you turned around and saw Cruella de Vil, it's like nothing. This doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be this big premiere, and it's no.
Yeah. We could have had something really cool with Guillermo del Toro.
I think it probably would have been the actual good Haunted Mansion movie that people would want.
We've talked about this kind of recently, I think with Chupa, of like something is basically like things aren't allowed to be scary or gross anymore. Yeah. Guillermo del Toro, I think, is like the one major pushback that we have right now of like making things like you can acknowledge that like monsters exist in the world, and like kids understand that. Like, we don't want to admit it, but some kids do. Yeah. And that's like one of his big things. This could have been a really cool movie. And like I don't think it would have even been like the traumatizing 80s movie kind of vibe, but like if it did, then so what? I think it would have
had a Labyrinth vibe.
Yeah, and I think it would have made them way more money. Yeah. Than like this is like the safest, least interesting option they could have taken, and they just went with that.
This version is an AI written version, and I'm sorry to the writer. Yeah. It was not a good script.
I liked the 2016 Ghostbusters kind of.
No, I enjoyed that. Yeah. Yeah, and Parks and Rec is a good show.
Yeah, like she's got great credits.
Yeah, but this one, and I'm guessing there's so much studio interference.
I'm sure she was on.
I'm not putting all of the blame on her, but like.
It's probably a time crunch too of like there was like years before any updates, and then August 2020 she's signed on to write a new screenplay.
She had a year.
She had a and then they began shooting in October.
And like that comes across.
Yeah.
This is a script written in a year.
Yeah. So I don't blame her.
No, it's just it's rough.
Yeah. So at one point this was supposed to be the beginning of a franchise. As we have said, the release date, so rough.
Yep.
And I'm not sure why it was moved around so much. And then the director, Justin Simeon, also because of the strikes, like, actors were doing a bunch of promo for the movie, and then the strikes happened, and then basically the director was, like, the only one that was campaigning for it because he was the only one that could. Yeah. So he said in an interview to The Wrap that I think the release date was really tough. I saw Barbie coming from miles away. I was disappointed by some aspects of our release, but I was not really surprised. There was a lot of stuff going on with the strike, a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with the movie that I think really got in the way, and that was frustrating to see because I came up in publicity. If you would have asked me and sat down with me, I would have seen some of these things coming. I'll put it that way. So he's not happy with
and, like, I get it.
Yeah, like, why would you... I guess my only thinking is, like, everyone has been talking about Barbie and Oppenheimer and, like, the Barbenheimer event for so long. I feel like the only one who could really potentially stand up to that would be Disney, the biggest company in the world-ish. So I get why basically they would be too cocky to think, like, this could apply to us, but you've got to know that a Christopher Nolan movie and a Barbie movie that people are really interested in and are doing, like, much more interesting things and much more cinematic things, it's not gonna go well for your movie. Anyway, and a lot of that promo, then he also talked about a possible sequel as, like, happening after the, like as part of his promotion. Then he was like, there's a strong potential for a sequel to happen and for a franchise. And depending on how well it does on Disney Plus, then a sequel is still possible, but it is not currently confirmed. A lot of people predict, or by a lot, I mean, like, however many predictions that I read, so, like, at least 3 said that this would be, a sequel would probably be a streaming exclusive with a smaller budget. And that predictions for it also said that it would probably still follow the same cast or some of the same cast, but also because of ongoing strikes and then how long that the CG process takes, that an optimistic release date isn't until 2026. So it's gonna be a while, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
And then this was filmed in New Orleans and Atlanta. This is another New Orleans movie for us. This is a trend we did not mean to.
New Orleans is really cranking out the movies. I don't want to live in New Orleans.
I don't like heat.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of sweaters. You can't wear them there that often. Or you could, but you would regret it.
Yep.
And then a lot of the set interiors were built and shot in Atlanta, and then at least one exterior was in New Orleans. But I think the sets were all in the studio in Atlanta.
That makes sense.
Anything else before we get to our ratings? Any other Easter eggs that you thought of?
I don't have anything. Bryce, do you have any?
There was, in the ballroom scene, they made sure to include Pickwick, the chandelier ghost.
Yeah.
And also they had the clock, the grandfather clock.
I feel like now you're naming characters from Beauty and the Beast.
Ominous teeth hidden in the furniture. Teeth-like furniture, which was a big thing because...
I noticed that in Travis's bedroom, the little, like, drapes above his bed were very teeth-like.
Yeah, those are remnants, at least in the ride design, those are remnants of the Museum of the Weird, which was supposed to open with... Oh, that's you, not me. That was supposed to open with the Haunted Mansion. It's supposed to be like a little side exhibit.
Wasn't it supposed to be like a walking tour thing?
Yeah.
And not a ride?
Yeah, it was supposed to be a walking tour, but then they were like, that's not efficient.
Yeah.
And then the Museum of the Weird was a side thing, and that had more interesting visuals, less haunted house, more
spooky.
Weird. Yeah. But then when that was canned, a lot of those Museum of the Weird stuff was brought into the Haunted Mansion, like teeth-like architecture and design, the Donald Duck chair, etc. So
Yeah.
A lot of the Easter eggs that I was excited, I had to do a quick refresher.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was just details of this was in the ride.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it was. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know, like, with the original, you were saying that, like, they used a lot of the actual props.
They used so they in the original they built the full exterior of the house. It's like 40 feet or something like that, and then CGI the roof of it, and then there were tombstones that were in. They said that like they had hundreds of tombstones that they had. They kind of like built a swamp basically, and so then like a bunch of those tombstones were in the swamp, and some of them came from the actual ride itself. I don't know how many props were carried over from the initial ride. And then like trees, like they manufactured trees and stuff that were in there. Yeah, it was interesting. I looked at like on YouTube. I think it was like Screen Wars or some name like that. That basically is just like a channel that has the DVD special features for stuff. And there was one that was like a compilation of the behind the scenes stuff for the 2023 movie that I watched, where it's basically just like several package variations of like people saying, we had a good time, please watch our movie.
Yeah.
And that's about it. And then I looked at the decent amount of stuff from the 2003 one. There's so much like just B-roll that you can see, and then there's a lot more like sit down interviews where they talk about like step by step, like here's how we got the effect of Madame Leota's head in the glass ball. And that like I feel like that makes me weirdly nostalgic of like I remember watching DVD special features a lot as a kid and like being interested in movies in that way, and it just sucks that it feels like it's more sanitized of like they don't want to give away their trade secrets anymore. They're not going to tell you about how they did things. And also maybe because like it's just less interesting now because things are less practical. It's all
it's
on
just
a computer.
camera over a guy at a computer just looking at him type.
I click this button and then I click this button and then I wait an hour for it to render and then I click this button.
And then I wait for my union to go on strike and get me health care.
The tombstones.
Yeah.
That reminded me. When the kid was crawling underneath the mansion 2.
Yeah.
All the tombstones had goofy like little things. That's because outside of the haunted mansion, they have the little goofy gravestone.
Yeah. I was like, I knew that's what it was referencing, but I was also like, man, Crump is just like so petty to be like, I'm not going to put your name, but I am going to give you a little rhyme to be remembered by.
The one redeeming quality of him.
He's a poet.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about our ratings?
Let's talk about our ratings.
Well, we have a 4 rating system with 5 options. A 0 out of 4 is an ooh, no.
Spooky.
Don't make movies anymore. Otherwise, I'll come back and haunt you again. And a 1 out of 4 is that was a movie. A 2 out of 4 is was well made. 3 out of 4 is enjoyable and technically good. And 4 is Oscar worthy. I gave this movie initially a 2 out of 4.
Are you changing it again?
I am going to change it to a 1 out of 4.
Cool.
Because it was so boring. And it wasn't a travesty of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that I would say it was a movie.
Yeah.
So.
I also gave it a 1 out of 4, and I'm sticking with that. Pretty much the same reasons, but also it could have been cool. It could have been really cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate like the fun dialogue. I really appreciate Travis. But just like the combo of having so many unnecessary ad reads inserted into your already corporate movie, and then also you did not need to cast Jared Leto. There was literally no reason for it to be him.
Yeah.
That just, it doesn't feel worth it to give it a 2 out of 4, which like, I feel like there's so much intention that was put behind like the design of this movie, but then the actual execution of it is, unfortunately not worth it to me, which sucks.
Bryce?
I'm going to be difficult and say 1.5.
Okay.
We don't really do half ratings.
Okay.
We don't really do half ratings.
I'll do 1, but of like a very hopeful 1.
You want to give it a 1 in air quotes?
Yeah. A 1 and a happy face,
1.
if I may.
So I think our average score would be a 1 and then a little shrug emoji, or maybe that Kevin James.
The Kevin James meme.
Yep, that's the one. Yeah. Because like it had so many problems.
Yeah.
It had so many problems, but also so much potential. And I couldn't, like, I left the theater having a fun time, but also a list of things that I would have done very differently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like why was the Hatbox Ghost the villain? That made no sense. You have a clear and obvious villain in Constance Hatchaway.
Yeah.
There are too many dead wives, not enough dead husbands.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to make this a series or like have sequels, I would have done a trilogy. First one would have been exploring Constance Hatchaway and her husbands, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And trying to escape that. The second one, maybe build up the Hatbox Ghost. I think making the Hatbox Ghost a villain could have been an interesting choice. I don't think they did it correctly.
Yeah.
I think in a Count Olaf from A Series of Unfortunate Events kind of way, if he had that kind of vibe, then it would have been good. Jim Carrey as the Hatbox Ghost.
Ooh. Cheekbones.
Somebody slide me.
And then the third one, throughout the first 2 movies, right, you have the main villains. Constance Hatchaway, let's say the mansion has been owned by murderers who just, have a history of killing, and Constance was the last one and the most vengeful. Whatever.
Yeah.
You throw in, there's a little guide helping you. You could write it off as Madame Lieta or something else. The second one, you have the Hatbox Ghost kind of being more zany. This one's a little off, a little quirky.
Not like the other ghosts.
And you feel he's not like the other ghosts. He's not outright gonna kill you, but he's gonna have fun with it. He's gonna be manipulative and conniving. And then you get more whispers of the host. And then the last one, build everything together for
Walt himself.
Walt Disney's head emerges from the center of Madame Leota's crystal ball breaks. Walt's head emerges.
I've been here the whole time.
And then wrap it all up with the ghost host being turning the house against the victims.
Yeah.
I think that would have been instead of trying to blow your load on one,
edge yourself.
Edge them a little bit.
We talk about edging a lot
More than once
for this movie podcast.
Yeah.
It's a
what is
makes you think
that animated movie?
Hey, that could be anything.
I mean, sure. Context is we're talking about haunted mansions.
Yeah.
Casper.
Nope. The you like it? It's the house is alive.
Oh, Monster House.
Monster House.
Yeah,
Monster House.
I love
Monster
Monster
House
House.
is haunted mansion done right.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch a good haunted house movie, go watch Monster House.
Yeah.
They piss in bottles.
And it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that brings us to the end of our the Haunted Mansion discussion.
Yeah.
How long have we been going for, Bryce?
Hour 43.
Okay.
Oh, nope. Hour 44.
Great. Typically we do another movie we watched recently. We're not going to do that because we talked about 2 movies.
Watch Monster House.
Yeah. Please go follow us places.
Yeah.
Instagram is the big one. Patreon, if you want to support us, that would be great. And leave questions and comments, and we'll respond in our other podcasts, Virtual House Sessions. We have a second recording of that coming up soon. By the time you're watching this, it's already out.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Bryce, thank you for helping us today, and thank you for your insights onto this franchise that we don't know as that side of.
This franchise.
Yes.
It's got enough material to be considered a franchise. It has a children's book.
Makes you think.
See you next week.
Hurry back. Hurry